Mel Gibson is a man who never shied away from speaking his mind, and that honesty nearly ended his career. In interviews, he openly discussed what the world of Hollywood stars and producers is really like.
There's a producer I know, successful producer, I will not mention names, but his whole opinion about women on film, from beginning to end, is very brief. He says, women on film, either naked or dead. Both is better.
And for those words, he paid a heavy price. If you've ever turned on a TV, chances are you've seen Mel Gibson, today an undeniable icon of cinema. His acting career took off fast, with his film debut already being a standout performance. That debut was in the now iconic Mad Max. Following the release and its sequel, film critics compared his acting style to Steve McQueen's, calling Gibson a rising action star. Interestingly, for the first Mad Max, he earned just $9,000 for the lead role. But 6 years later, for the third installment, his paycheck jumped to a whopping $1 million. In the meantime, he starred in several globally successful productions like The Bounty, but it was Mad Max that truly launched him into Hollywood stardom. Gibson remained a part of the Hollywood elite for over 2 decades. However, he's far from a spotless figure. He's been accused of anti-Semitism, something said to have roots in his upbringing. The controversy intensified after his film The Passion of the Christ, which he directed. While the movie resonated with many audiences, it was heavily criticized by the Jewish community. They claimed it portrayed Jews as responsible for the death of Jesus. When asked about this by a journalist, Gibson responded, "The film tells the truth." That comment ignited even more backlash. Unfortunately, this wasn't an isolated incident. In 2006, after being arrested for drunk driving, Gibson allegedly said that Jews are responsible for all the wars in the world. He even asked the arresting officer, who was Jewish, "Are you a Jew?" A comment that once again damaged his public image. He later apologized, claiming he was drunk and ashamed of his words. But this wasn't the only time he sparked outrage. Back in 1991, he openly criticized same-sex relationships. When asked by a Spanish journalist, he said, "They take it up the ass, and that's only for taking a shit." 4 years later, the LGBTQ+ rights group GLAAD protested the release of Braveheart, alleging that the film portrayed Edward Tew as homophobic. They staged protests in several cities, but Gibson didn't seem concerned. The film received massive acclaim. When asked about the situation by Playboy magazine, Gibson replied he'd apologize to gay couples when hell freezes over. According to Winona Ryder, at a party in 1995, a drunk Gibson made offensive comments toward her gay friend Kevin and asked her directly if she was one of those who didn't get into the ovens. Over the years, such behavior provided the industry with a reason to distance itself from him. After his 2006 arrest, agent Ari Emanuel, who represented stars like Leonardo DiCaprio, wrote an open letter. He described Gibson's words as harmful to the entire film industry and urged others not to work with him. Sony and many other major players agreed. Directors, producers, and actors began avoiding him to protect their own reputations. Gibson had already been seen as a controversial figure since the 90s. By 2006, he was unofficially blacklisted in Hollywood. Yet, even in the late 90s, he was warning people about what the industry was really like. After that interview, Gibson faced one of the darkest decades of his life: anti-Semitic accusations, unemployment, alcoholism, a messy breakup. He was recorded during a fight with his then partner saying clearly racist remarks. By 2010, his reputation had collapsed. But during an awards ceremony, a man Gibson once helped stood up for him publicly.
Because when I couldn't get sober, he told me not to give up hope. And I couldn't get hired, so he cast me in the lead of a movie that was actually developed for him. And he kept a roof over my head, and he kept food on the table. And most importantly, he said that if I accepted responsibility for my wrongdoings, and if I embraced that part of my soul that was ugly, hugging the cactus, he calls it, he said that if I hugged the cactus long enough, I'd become a man of some humility, and that my life would take on a new meaning. And I did, and it worked. All he asked in return was that someday I help the next guy. It's reasonable to assume that at the time he didn't imagine the next guy would be him. I humbly ask that you join me, unless you are completely without sin, in which case you picked the wrong industry, in forgiving my friend his trespasses, offering him the same clean slate you have me, and allowing him to continue his great and ongoing contribution to our collective art without shame. He's hugged the cactus long enough.
Perhaps being rejected by Hollywood is what made Mel Gibson into the man we know today. After Apocalypto in 2006, he didn't direct anything for 10 years. His acting career also suffered. After The Passion of the Christ in 2004, his next major role came 6 years later in Edge of Darkness. He mostly worked outside Hollywood. Despite resistance, he slowly made a return. In 2016, he directed Hacksaw Ridge, which earned him an Oscar in 2017. But new controversy hit when a supposed quote from Gibson went viral, claiming that Hollywood is flooded with the blood of innocent children. He allegedly said elites drink their blood for energy, a classic QAnon-style conspiracy. But there's no verified source for this claim. It originated from a fake news website, Your Newswire. Gibson's representative denied he ever made such a statement, and rightly so. He's always owned up to his controversial remarks. He may not have spoken about drinking blood, but he has addressed the issue of child trafficking, encouraging viewers to watch Sound of Freedom. As you can see, speaking uncomfortable truths and voicing personal opinions out loud can almost cost someone their career. Mel Gibson learned that the hard way. If you enjoyed this film, leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Take care.